We're so excited you joined VOO Church Online, where we love God, serve others, and make a difference. We invite you to interact with our church family in the comment section below. Help us serve our community by giving online at voo.church. Here's Pastor Brad with this week's message.
Hey church family, welcome to a collection of talks about being overwhelmed, stressed out, depressed, anxious, maybe thinking, I can't handle this. I remember one time I was in a situation where I couldn't handle this. I was asked to be the speaker at a youth retreat, and I like to hang out with the students, and just so happens this day, the students are jumping off of a pier into the lake, and I'm watching them. All of a sudden, I hear, hey preacher, come up here. And I'm thinking to myself right there, this is going to end badly. This is going to end bad because I have a separated shoulder. But I get to the top of the pier and they're like, you should jump. And I was like, probably shouldn't. And then I did. And all of a sudden I realized in that moment, I can't swim. I'm drowning. And so I start screaming out for help. One of the staff members comes over and he tries to help me. And I realize in that moment, he can't help me. It's not working. And so I say, hey, I got this. But the problem is, I wasn't sure if I did. But I realized in that moment, I have 2 good legs and 1 good arm. So I said, all right, let's slow the pace, let's relax, and let's think, how can I at least get to a tree? And so I doggy paddled with 1 arm to a tree and held on until I heard this, help is on the way. Well, we can be that way in our lives sometimes. We can get in a current, we can get in a stressful situation, and all we need is to hear, help is on the way. We can be having a great life, enjoying everything, and all of a sudden an overwhelming situation happens, and we are stressed to the max. When I was a kid, and even growing up, I loved to watch the news. But I always felt like it's always going from bad to worse. Like, for example, aliens. Aliens are going to end the world. Or meteorites. They're going to take out our planet. Or Bigfoot's going to kill everybody. Or Y2K. Y2K was such a big deal. And it had a bunch of people overwhelmed. I actually know a guy who took Y2K maybe a little too seriously. Because he prepared in a big way. For example, he put up a prison fence all the way around his house. He installed gas under the ground. He bought horses. He bought chickens and all of this stuff in preparation for the end of the world. And I remember on that night in my bedroom, I was just about 18 years old-ish and had some binoculars because I wanted to know what was going to happen. They were walking around their property with guns and they were protecting their property. And all of a sudden, 11:59, and my heart kind of starts racing. I'm thinking, what's going to happen? 12 o'clock hits. I'm expecting the lights to go out. I'm expecting crazy things to happen. And then nothing happens. And I thought, wow, that wasn't such an overwhelming situation at all. But some of those situations are extreme. However, there are some overwhelming situations in life that aren't just out there. They're real. They're right in front of us. Maybe getting laid off at work, experiencing struggles in your marriage, having your first child, graduating from college with a degree and a bunch of debt with absolutely no job in sight, getting a call from your doctor, hey, you need to come in as soon as possible, not being able to get over your past, maybe it's full of mistakes and you keep looking back, or losing someone close to you. I could go on, but I'm sure you get the picture. Life can be overwhelming at times. There are 2 types of people you don't want to encounter when you're going through something like this. One is that's the no big deal. You're going through a really tough situation, and all of a sudden you tell somebody your story like, oh, that's no big deal. It's not that bad. Or this one, let me tell you my story. Let me tell you how bad my life is. Their fish is always bigger. And I begin to think, that's not really an accurate way we should portray that. I'm not going to be one of those guys. Here's the reason why. Overwhelming circumstances will always be overwhelming. In fact, if you're worried or stressed about something right now, it's probably not going to get better before this message ends. Probably not going to get better before our series on being overwhelmed ends. But I do believe this. You can find hope in your overwhelming situation. Before I keep going, we have to have honesty time. We have to ask ourselves, are we settling for being overwhelmed? Or do we want to be an overcomer? Do we want to get out of this situation? Do we want to get out of what's robbing of us of our peace and joy? Here's the reason why we have to answer that. I've done a lot of talking with people that are going through stuff and overwhelming situations. And we talk and we chat and we counsel and we get to the end of what we've talked about and what they're going through. And they say back, I don't know if I want to do the solution. And I'm like, what? What do you mean? They're like, I kind of like what I'm going through. And I think to myself, so we've talked about this big overwhelming situation, but you want to stay in it. You don't want to be an overcomer. And they're like, yeah, it gets me attention. It gets me likes on Facebook when I post about my overwhelming situation. So I don't really want to get through it. Here's the deal. When we're overwhelmed, we have to understand that change begins with a decision to overcome and not be overwhelmed. Some people never make it out of the current circumstances because they don't take a step forward. They don't say, hey, I know I need to do this, and I'm going to do it. Here's what I know about being overwhelmed. If you'll take the first step, God will step in and take the next step. Here's the reason why. We can't stay overwhelmed. We can't live an overwhelmed life. Here's the reason why. It makes us want to quit. When we're overwhelmed, we'll say often, I'm just going to quit. Maybe you're going to quit your job, your life, your marriage, your school, your social groups. We've all felt like quitting it sometimes. It's the reason we have these sayings. Say these with me. I'm ready to throw in the towel. I'm at the end of my rope. My life is falling apart. I'm at my wit's end. Too legit to quit. Got you on that one. That's what we got to think about sometimes. God's been too good to us. He's done too many great things for us to try to quit. When we're in overwhelming situations, we have to do a few things so we can overcome. One is find people to help you. I remember when I first started in youth ministry, I first started being paid by the church. I was having a really rough day, and I knew that I couldn't handle this. So I decided I had this wise idea that I'm going to text my boss, my pastor, and one of my best friends, who just happens to be Jeremy Foster. I sent this text message. I can't handle this. I'm quitting. And then I turned my phone off. So nobody could call me. Nobody could respond. And for about 3 hours, I stood strong. And by the time I got ready to turn my phone back on, I was overwhelmed by the fact that I had to turn my phone back on. I was actually scared to turn my phone back on. So I decided, okay, I at least need to see what his response is. So I turned my phone on, it powered up, and it was a long pause because no text messages came in.